In this lesson, we're going to learn how a floor is constructed in terms of different layers of materials and floor types in a Revit environment. To begin, we need to come up here to the Architecture tab and then select on the Floor tool. When we do this, we'll see that underneath the Type Selector list, it'll give us an option for wood joist 10-inch ceramic tile. Now, if you've picked another floor off of the list, then it's possible you might have a different floor showing up here on your Type Selector list. What I'd like to do is switch this to a different kind of floor. So we're going to select on the floor in the Type Selector list and pick wood joist 10-inch wood finish. Now that we've done that, let's take a look at the different materials that make up this floor type. To do that, we need to select on the Edit Type button directly underneath that Type Selector list. When we do, we'll get the Type Properties dialog box. And I'm just dragging it over by clicking on this blue line up here, holding my mouse button down and then dragging this over to the side. What I'd like to do now is come to the bottom of the dialog box and select on the Preview button. By doing this, it'll give us a preview of how this floor looks or how it's put together. From here, there's an option called Structure with a gray Edit button next to it. Oftentimes, I'll just call this Edit Structure. So we're going to select on Edit next to the word Structure. And this brings us to Edit Assembly, which still gives us the same picture, but begins to show us what each layer of material is that makes up this floor type. In this case, we can see that there's an oak floor, plywood, and some kind of structure. The thickness of each one of these is 3/4 of an inch for the oak flooring, 3/4 of an inch for the plywood, and then 9 1/4 inches for the structure down below. If we want to see a little bit more of these material names, in fact, yours might already be expanded out depending on your different settings in Revit. But if yours is compressed like mine is, what you can do is come over here to one of the edges of your dialog box. When you see the double arrows, you can click and hold your mouse button down and stretch that over to the side. And when you do this, it'll expand the dialog box out and you should be able to see the full name of the material. If for some reason you still can't, you can highlight over one of these individual lines right here, click and hold your mouse button down, and then drag it over to the side in order to begin to expand these dialog boxes out. And I'm going to do the same thing here between material and thickness. Click, hold down my mouse button, and drag this over to the side. So we can now see that we have structure, wood joist, rafter layer, and that's what's making up this 9 1/4 inches. If we wanted to change this to be a different size, we could. Maybe you'd want this wood joist 10-inch instead of being a 2x10. Maybe you want these to be 2x12s instead. And if we do that, we can simply change this 9 to be an 11 by clicking in here in the box, highlighting over where the number 9 was at, and then typing in the number 11. Keep an eye over here. When we do this, I'm going to click on OK to finish that off. Now, it may not be immediately obvious, but when we change that, this is actually a thicker floor now. And if we click over here where it has Edit again next to Structure, let me change this back to be 9. Now I'm just going to click in one of these other dialog boxes over here. You may have seen this layer of material looks like it got just slightly bigger. But the reality of it is it didn't really get bigger. It's just the display of the preview is staying the same between this point and this point. It's actually scaled this floor up just in the preview image so that this has the same height from here to here, but the thickness has now been decreased of this board here. To illustrate that once more, if I change this back to be an 11 now, what we're going to see is that these two are going to look like they've gotten smaller, but the reality of it is that they'll both still be 3/4 of an inch in thickness, and it'll be this gray area, which is now 2 inches thicker. So if we click in here where the thickness is located at, you can see how this now looks like it's gotten a little bit smaller, but it's because this material here has now gotten thicker. One thing to know though is right now this is still called a wood joist 10-inch. That's what I'd like to leave it at. So we're going to change that 11 back to being a 9, but then we're going to do what's called duplicate the floor in order to create a wood floor that in fact does have that thicker material associated with it. So to do that, with this change back to 9, we're going to click on OK. Then here in the Type Properties dialog box, we're going to pick on the word Duplicate. And we'll change this from being wood joist 10 inches to wood joist 12 inches. And we want to make sure that we can get rid of the number 2 down here at the end because we're only going to have one floor, which is a wood joist 12-inch. We'll click on OK to that. where it has the edit button, click on that. And just like we did before, we want to change this to be from a 9 to being an 11. If we would click on OK, then we would see this update. Also, we could just click right inside of either one of these two boxes here, and we can see it update over here. Now, another option that we have would be to add another layer of material to this. For instance, maybe this was up on the second floor or the third floor, and we wanted to have a ceiling material here on the underneath side of the floor. All you need to do is move over here, edit assembly again, and select on Insert. When you do, it'll insert in another layer of material. And that layer of material, if you click there on the line where that layer of material is inserted in at, can be moved either up or down by clicking on the up or down buttons here on this bar going across the middle. From here, we can see right now it's called Structure. And I don't really want this to be called Structure. I'd like this to be a finished layer of material. So I'm going to pick Finish 1-4 off of the list. For material, you can come over here to by category and click inside there. And there'll be a little box right there. If you select on that box, it'll bring up the material dialog box. And you could pick any material that you wanted off of the dialog box. And I'll just scroll down here so we can see this. In this case, I'm going to pick this gypsum wallboard, highlight on that, click on OK. Now, one thing you'll notice is that we don't currently have that layer material right here. And the reasoning is that we haven't given it a thickness yet, and it needs to have some sort of thickness associated with it. If we change this to be 3/4 of an inch, and then just click inside of one of these boxes, we'll now see that we now have that gypsum wallboard material on the underneath side. If we would click on OK at this point, we would now have that material on the underneath side of the floor, and that could serve as being the ceiling for the level down below. On the other hand, though, if we didn't want to have that material there, maybe we wanted to install a ceiling separate from the floor, which is never really a bad idea, we could highlight back where it has that material and then select on the Delete button. And by doing that, it'll delete that extra layer of material off of this floor that we just created. One other thing to note is that as we were changing this dimension, the total thickness adjusted up here, as well as the resistance and thermal information that shows here. The reason why this information changed is it's information associated with the material properties that make up the flooring. Now, if we click on OK to this, and now OK to this, we'll see that over here on the left-hand side under the type selector list, we now have a wood joist 12-inch wood finish floor, as well as that original wood joist 10-inch wood finish floor. So to create your own custom floors in Revit, you first need to execute the floor command. Then highlight on a floor that's similar to the kind of floor that you want to create. Once you've done this, go to Edit Type, then Edit Structure, and then either insert in extra layers of material, delete layers of material that you don't need. You can move the layers either up or down by selecting on the up or down buttons, and you can adjust the materials and thicknesses here in the Edit Assembly dialog box.